10, 9, 8, 7, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. This is BX Blues for the divinenature.net. BX Blues for the divinenature.net. Let's do that again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is BX Blues for the divinenature.net. BX Blues for the divinenature.net. We're gonna have a little conversation. Okay, I thought I turned down my oh, brother. This is crazy. All right, so I could have sworn I had my notifications off on my phone, and apparently this very second, I thought I was in the clear, and it just goes off. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Basically, we're going to go into what I'd like to call total depravity. We're going to talk about the doctrines of total depravity, and I've been actually covering a lot on secularism lately, because I feel like, okay, after this whole Charlie Kirk thing, last couple of my messages, my last podcasts have been speaking about and related to Charlie Kirk and what happened to him. We're seeing as proof, okay? As proof, oh my goodness. We're seeing as proof more than ever that there's depravity in the nation, okay? And the title of my message today is Depravity in High Places, okay? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to cover this lady called Ilhan Omar. She is a congresswoman. I think she's from representative of Minnesota. And this lady, I mean, there have been many people who have said a lot of crazy stuff after Charlie Kirk's death, but she actually went in a church. It had to be a liberal church, and she went on a pulpit and started literally cursing at the people, had a nasty attitude, literally just started talking about Charlie Kirk, saying that he was not civil. Okay, and as it turns out, I didn't realize this before, but as it turns out, it was in response to a man who asked him questions concerning him, and he asked her, should we have conversations with those people who disagree with us, or should we just, call people names, so, to that effect. Okay, we're going to cover that soundbite, and then we're going to analyze what's going on in our country today. We have to be in constant prayer and constant fasting, always having these things in our prayer list, because the exposing of so much depravity, it's fomenting in politics, right? And so nothing bared that out more than what we saw with Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? We saw the heart of the left, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the doctrine of total depravity. Stand by. Welcome to the Divine Nature Podcast. Check out divinenature.net for more podcasts, videos, blogs, and commentary from a Christian and biblical worldview perspective. So what we have here is I wanted to talk about total depravity, and I want to talk about the evil that we find in high places, that is high places in government, masking its way as politics. But really what it is a departure of God and of, I mean, the as far as I'm concerned, the ground zero of all reason and all truth in its complete objectivity is the fact that there is a God and that God has spoken. So coming from this Christian worldview, which I represent, this is where I'm coming from. And of course, if you truly believe this, you're not going to talk in terms of doubt. You're not going to speak the language of neutrality. You're going to speak it out boldly. Okay. And I truly believe this. I don't just believe this, I believe this truly. And so we need to speak out about it. We need to speak out. We do need to speak out in our churches. We do need to speak out on our podcasts. Whenever we have an opportunity to speak, we should speak. Okay? So let's look first at I want to present a soundbite of what this lady actually said. Okay? And then we're gonna go into a news clip to get an idea how this depravity is playing out in New York, because we have someone who is a Muslim, Islamic, radical socialist, and he's running for mayor and he's winning in the polls. Okay, and so we have one guy who's conservative, who's older, and he's been around for decades. And for some reason, he's like, I think he's third in the polls. I think behind Cuomo, of all people. Cuomo again, after all the drama that he caused in the state. And yet there's still, some people are still considering this guy. It's just outrageous. And Curtis Sliwa is running as the Republican. Now, not that because he's running for Republican, but because he is more conservative, and he is like night and day in comparison to the extreme dude who's running. And it's so bad. It's so bad that he's hand in hand with AOC, who literally says that she may run for president if Danamani, whatever his name is, if he wins, okay, and he has a really strong chance of winning. This is what the people want. It's just amazing, and it's worth analyzing. How can people want and desire a person who holds these type of values? Now, let's go into the practicality that his values is a departure of everything we've seen in historical United States of America. He is a departure, right? The conservative values isn't the extreme. It's only an extreme when it stands next to the extreme departure that is supposed quote unquote democratic socialism. Okay? And that's just a distraction. This whole thing of throwing the word democratic and putting it in there with socialism. Socialism, any socialism, is garbage. Okay? Get that out of here. The policies would take, 10 podcasts for me to cover of how wrong that is. But this podcast isn't exclusive politics. I'll just touch on it with regard to how it cross centers as it crosses morality, which is the basis of much politics. Okay, so let's go into this whole hubbub that happened with Ilhan Omar and a church, And listen to the extreme things that she says on a pulpit. Extremely disrespectful.
Charlie Kirk over the last up in the sky advocated for those who disagree with him to come to his various gatherings and dialogue with.
Well, let's try that again.
Charlie Kirk over the last decade has advocated for those who disagree with him to come to his various gatherings and dialogue with him and debate with him. And in contrast, in an interview he had this week with Marty Hassan, I think his name is, you said that those who disagree with you and may have a different open view, worldview, are, in your words, full of shit. So I'm just wondering which approach is better, to call upon those who disagree with you to come to open debate and dialogue, or to say that those who disagree with you and have a different worldview are full of shit.
So you must have selective hearing, sir, because I said that the people who were full of shit were the people who were saying that Kirk was civil.
Thank God.
No, that's not true. The person who called for public execution of people he disagreed with is not civil. The person who said you are a black woman, you lack the ability to process thoughts is not civil. The person who said because I am Muslim, I cannot be in this country because I want to destroy Western society is not civil. The person who said a 10-year-old should be forced to carry the child of a rapist is not civil. You and I do believe those of you who are interested in rewriting this hateful man's history are full of shit.
Thank you. So that is her claim to fame. Okay, that's her claim to fame on at that church, and it had to be, I don't know what she was doing there. It had to be a very liberal church, because look how people were clapping when they said, she says, when people have these opinions against abortion, it's uncivil. Okay, think about it. She's claiming that Charlie Kirk was uncivil because he had a difference of opinion concerning, and with a concern for a baby's life in the womb. Okay, that's extreme. All right, a person who speaks that way is not a civilized person, an incredibly depraved individual. Okay, and so just look at what's going on in the city. And I think she's a representative for Minnesota, but we've got in New York City, there are, it's everywhere. It's the radical, and now they're fomenting because of Trump. And I've said before, when you've got a conservative in the office, when you've got a conservative is in power, is in the Senate and in Congress, this is where you get this type of behavior, this tantrum-like behavior from the left, and they become radical because they feel like their sacred cows are about to be taken away. Okay, all of these policies that are death cult policies that are non-flourishing for humanity, because they are intrinsically on a road, a suicidal mission. They're kamikazes. They've got nothing to lose because nothing is of intrinsic value. It has to be in the here and now. Okay, so let's go to hang on a second. let's go to, I'm surprised about my volume. It's kind of, I find that very strange. Okay, so let's go to, okay. Let's now go to another audio clip, a news clip that kind of centers, and it goes into a couple of different issues that's going on, especially in New York politics.
Joining me now is House Ways and Means Committee member and New York Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis. Congresswoman, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Your reaction to the president on the world stage once again doing deals worth hundreds of billions.
That's right. President Trump keeps winning for America. And this is another deal where you're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars in investment. You're seeing thousands of jobs being created. And this is the industries of the future where we need to be competitive, where we need to have an edge, as you say, to compete with China. It's AI, it's quantum computing, and it's nuclear energy, which is critical to ensure that Europe is not reliant on Russia. And so this is very helpful. And the one thing that I think has been overlooked and not talked about enough in this deal is the benefits for our agriculture industry, the farmers that are going to benefit. We've faced trade barriers all around the world for so long for American products. And here's President Trump in deal after deal, reducing those barriers, making it more fair for our farmers to compete overseas and to export. So I think this is great. This market access is critical. And the other thing that we're seeing is, again, private investment. This, the president has already attracted trillions of dollars in private investment to the United States of America, where companies are expanding their manufacturing capabilities and investing significantly. It's not like what you saw in the Biden administration, which is taxpayer money subsidizing losers. That's what we saw under Biden. Here we're seeing companies willing to put up their own money to be here in the United States and in where our allies are.
I want to switch gears, Congresswoman, and ask you about you and your colleagues and your efforts to move on cracking down on crime in the nation's capital. You've passed new bills to toughen penalties for juveniles, including trying violent offenders as adults starting at age 14. Democrats are responding once again with criticism. They say keeping Americans safe is fascist. Watch this clash between Rashida Tlaib and Byron Donalds.
And I think it's really important. We need to stand up against this fascist takeover. That's not a bad word. It's a fact.
Do I look like a member of the Third Reich to you, Miss Tlaib?
Please,
is that what I look like to you?
You're the one taking your voting card.
Is that what you think? Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
No, that's unethical.
I think it's radical and I think it's insane. And I'll respect everything that you say. But to say something like that to myself and a lot of my colleagues is way out of line. It's way out of line. It's way out of line.
Regular order, Mr.
Way out of line.
Wow. That was embarrassing, Congresswoman.
The radical left believes that grown men, 25 years old, under 25 years old, should be tried as children. Imagine a 24-year-old repeat offender being charged as a juvenile for a felony. It's happening here in Washington, D.C., and we've seen those juvenile arrests double year after year since this radical law took effect. So we're using our jurisdiction, our oversight, because we do have the ability to override Washington, D.C. City Council law with our law that says, no, if you are 18 years old, you're being tried as an adult. And that is very appropriate. It's unfortunate we can't do the same thing in New York City. New York City raised the age. And guess what? You saw a increase. Felony arrests have doubled since that law took effect in 2018. 136% increase in juvenile gun arrests. We've seen over the summer multiple people murdered by kids as young as 13 years old. So it's a shame we don't have that same authority to rein in cities like New York who believe in these leniency and get out of jail free cards and no accountability.
Well, speaking of New York City, let's look at this latest poll for mayor, Zoran Mamdani, with a 15-point lead over Andrew Cuomo. But while Mamdani has gotten the backing of New York Governor Kathy Hochul, the powerful head of New York's Democrat Party is refusing to endorse him. Jay Jacobs releasing a statement that reads in part, "I reject the platform of the so-called Democratic Socialists of America and do not believe that it represents the principles, values, or policies of the Democrat Party. For those reasons, I will not be endorsing Mr. Mamdani for mayor of the city of New York." Congressman, according to these polls, this message is falling on deaf ears. We've got lawmakers like AOC watching all of this closely. There is an article today saying she is getting herself ready to run for president in 2028. Your reaction to the polls and the situation in New York?
If we allow socialism to take over New York City, it will spread throughout this country. And that is why we need to stop it. The bottom line is Andrew Cuomo signed the radical bail law that increased crime in New York City. Mamdani supports it and he wants to go further, says that we should abolish ICE, that NYPD is the greatest threat to our public safety, doesn't believe there's a place for jails in our society. All these Democrats, whether it's Mamdani or Kathy Hochul, are responsible for the mess in New York City. This is our one chance to change things. I've endorsed Curtis Sliwa because he is the one candidate who's not like the others who have contributed to the demise of our city. And he has helped transition homeless and mentally ill off our streets. He started the Guardian Angel because he cares about public safety decades ago. He has been serving this city, knows our transit system and what it will take to keep it safe because he's been on every transit line in this city. He's been to every housing project in our city. I hope that people see what's going on here and send a really strong message to AOC, to the Bernie Sanders and all the others who want socialism in this country, that we will not accept the radical policies of Karl Marx. I mean, he's even gone so far to say he wants to seize the means of production. We should have government-run supermarkets. That is not what we need in New York City, the economic engine for the country and the largest city, by the way, in our country as well, which contributes greatly in tax revenue for the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Curtis Sliwa wants to cut taxes and do a couple of other things, but your colleagues seem to question him. You're not getting a lot of support, even from the Republicans. He's the only Republican in the race. So I assume your colleagues are getting behind Andrew Cuomo.
Well, look, as somebody who ran for mayor of New York City in 2017, it's not easy running in New York as a Republican. People don't give you a fair shake. The media doesn't give you coverage, and it's hard. But I think Curtis is running a very respectable campaign. He's talking about the issues. He is not sleeping. He's out there every day, every night, campaigning, talking to people, going to where they are, in the subway stations, at the NYCHA housing. But if they want not to do, they want common sense. They want common sense and public safety, and again, business is allowed to thrive in our city. They should do something different, and voting for Curtis Sliwa would certainly be different.
Do you think that there's a feeling in the GOP that they're willing to sacrifice New York because they feel that if Mamdani wins in New York, they'll have a better shot at winning in the 2026 midterms? Is that what this is about?
I think there are some Republicans that may feel that way, and I find that very disheartening, particularly because I have to live here. I'd rather not learn the hard way. I think that's what's going to happen here. New Yorkers are going to either learn the hard way that we cannot support radical socialists to run a city like New York, and hopefully we won't have to. They'll learn now as we talk about and expose Zoran Mamdani for who he is, and they'll reject him at the ballot.
All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, we're watching your work. We appreciate your time.
So they're not going to support Curtis Sliwa, but they're going to vote for Cuomo, who they've had a tug of war fest with over years in his crazy policies, right? And they're not going to support the more conservative guy. they're gonna go with another extreme liberal, who we know is all about, but and then Sliwa has been in politics for decades upon decades upon decades. He's never really held down office before. And he would be someone who would, I mean, I don't know all his policies. I don't, but I know I could bet my spleen that this guy would be way better than some extreme fake democratic socialist. But they're not. They have their greater sights on power and greed. I mean, I can't think of anything more depraved. So it's depravity in high places, not just on the left, but also on the right. And as they say, the left and the right are the wings of the same raptor. Okay? So as I've said before, secularism equals Satan. And I blogged this on today's divinenature.net. The ogre of secularism leads to a culture of death and immorality, depravity, nihilism, depression, anxiety, suicide, theft, which is socialism, lies, selfishness, greed, injustice, lust, sexual perversion and promiscuity, hatred, totalitarianism, tyranny, murder. Secularism equals Antichrist, Antichrist equals anti-humanity, and anti-humanity equals anti-life. Okay? So it's just what we're seeing, and it's a damn shame. So evil in high places in government, it's embedded. One example is that lady Ilhan Omar, but she's one of many already embedded, and they keep becoming embedded in local and in our system. She's a nasty, terribly rebellious behaved anti-American radical who needs to be denaturalized and kicked out of Congress. There's an issue that they say that she married her own brother. And so by way of her doing this, they're saying that she could be denaturalized because of it. I don't know the law, but they got to do something about her as soon as possible because she is an incredible radical. And when somebody is that radical, it shouldn't be difficult to find out what they're doing is illegal. And they've caught so many in corruption. It's unreal. Her un-American rhetoric is well documented. She's a depraved leftist radical who shouldn't be anywhere near our political system. And by her behavior and words alone, she should be kicked out of the country. Okay? Because if it's found to have anything to do with undermining our constitutional republic, even by influence, okay, then she shouldn't be there. She's not a regular citizen. She's a high representative of office. So the thought that she can be anti-American makes no sense. Okay? At any time, it could be found that she has incited violence or rebellion against our nation. She needs to be accountable for it. Okay? So I think Sliwa would make a better mayor. The left is completely out of touch with reality, with sound ethics, and they're out of touch with rational and critical thinking. Just look at the behavior and the policies. The policies are going to follow the grounding of their worldview. They mentioned something about a 25-year-old treated as children. This is what they want in order to not to incarcerate them. They create incentives to crime, like allowing people to steal by dropping the penalty for theft. And so now hordes of depraved criminals just flock to stores to make stealing like a whole family affair. Okay? They're warped on justice and protecting the community, encouraging violence towards our local police instead of insisting on bettering the training of the police. They've marched about abolishing the NYPD, abolishing ICE. Now ICE is trying to take criminals out of here, and they're abolishing. They want to abolish ICE, and they want to abolish the NYPD. They don't talk about bettering the system. They talk about eradicating it. Okay, they advocate for having no police. Imagine that. A constant attack on our ability to defend ourselves, our Second Amendment rights at home and on the street, when they're letting go of these criminals on the street. They often attack private property by adding regulations and prohibiting what one can do with their own properties. The rental market and the liabilities that come with renting your properties has become so volatile. You have to layer yourself with all sorts of ways, and it's to protect yourself legally. And it's gotten to the point that rental agreements and contracts hold no weight anymore between you and your renter. You could still get sued for the stupidest things because local real estate laws get in the way of what should be a one-to-one agreement rental with your clients. But the law can bust through that for the stupidest things. Okay, parental authority is another thing, always being challenged and threatened. If you don't agree with a kooky leftist propaganda on mental health and their worldview of death, they threaten to take your children. And I've podcasted about this, my recent podcast, how they usurp parental authority. Okay, what kind of governance is this? What kind of morality is this? Where are these politicians coming from? Are they crawling out of the pit of hell? Where do they come from? How more sinister can this possibly get? Well, they seek to gain more and even more power every day, more and more and more. And because people have been given over to their God, the God of this world, they can't see what's going on. They literally can't see themselves circling the septic hole. They create the conditions for chaos, and then they try to hide their accountability. Okay? They'll always blame it on something else. Imagine a 25-year-old repeat offender being charged as a juvenile. This is what they find. They sense this as sound judgment. This is not sound judgment. This is what happens. How a repeat psychos are let out of the street to search and destroy communities. What does this say about law and crime? What message does it deliver to criminals? That we're not serious about crime or evil? And then you have in the New York City mayoral race, a radical, profane, out of control, leftist, Marxist, Islamic devil up in the polls. And I'm like, wow, is this how bad we've become? How blind? But the problem is the people. The problem is the people. We're the problem. The people are just way too open to demonic leadership. Why? Why are people going in this direction? Because they've allowed themselves in their own rebellion against God. That's what it boils down to. That's where it starts. So naturally, Satan will then come around and hand them the cookie that they want, which is a caricature and a symbol of what they want. And thus, they're taken deeper and deeper into the septic hole of hell. It all starts with rebellion. There's no neutrality. There are no innocents here. It's rebellion from the very start. A refusal to listen, a refusal to hear. It's a spirit of rebellion against authority, against wisdom. Okay? And you leave yourself open for something worse. And before you know it, you're fully engulfed into it. It's so bad that the current leftist mayor won't back the Mandani radical, because even she sees a significant difference between her and this guy who's running as a so-called democratic socialist, which is a fake term just to throw people off. Anything socialist should be rejected outright. This is a constitutional republic, for crying out loud, people. Open up a history book. Oh, please. Oh, I forgot. They've taken down all of that from our public schools curriculums in all those blue states. And can you believe, as absurd as absurdity can ever be, AOC is rumored to want to run for president if this Mandani gets in as mayor. Oh, my heavens. Just to even mention something like this, just to have the thought pass through the airways is just too much to bear. It's just too much. It's more than obvious that Curtis Sliwa is the answer for this mayoral race, the only answer here right now. He's far removed, he's far removed from the disaster we've ended up in over so many years of leftist politics in New York. But it's going to take a big push, and people of sound mind are going to need to come out of nowhere and everywhere to vote, and hopefully it's not already rigged like some third world election. Sadly, the report states that there are conservatives in Washington who won't back up Sliwa for their own future interest. And I'm like, it's stuff like this that is just as demonic as what's going on in leftist politics. It's that type of uncaring for humanity whereby people take their politics and they play with people's lives, the greed, the power, the lack of caring that demonstrates you shouldn't even be in politics because you're all that is wrong about politics. Any conservative who thinks this way is also a selfish and greedy devil and will themselves suffer at the drop and pit of their selfish and greedy decisions. Eventually, with time, they're going to fall, okay? They're going to fall in this themselves, okay? So, hang on a second. So it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. And so now let's look at the doctrine of total depravity. I saw a video where a reformed guy, I believe he was reformed, he was talking about the doctrine of total depravity. And he started talking about total depravity, but he left out the most important thing about the doctrine of total depravity. And that is not just that we are all fallen in Adam, but that it is only by the grace of God that we can come to God through Christ. Okay? That's the most important aspect of the doctrine of total depravity, because that's the part that people hate the most. Now we're going to listen to a snippet of John MacArthur, and he's going to open up on this and get a good understanding of the doctrine of total depravity. And he says that it's the most, I just did podcasts on substitutionary atonement, penal substitutionary atonement, and I did a couple of studies on that and a couple of podcasts, and I'm still floored at the fact of how many people, even people that call themselves Christians, who are offended by the doctrine of penal substitutionary atonement, which, when understood well, is such an incredible blessing. I can't even wrap my head around it. But here John MacArthur is talking about, here he's talking about that total depravity is the one they hate the most. And I can't disagree,
If we were to talk about the doctrine of total depravity for a moment, understand it simply as man's universal inability and unwillingness to come to God, both unable and unwilling. No man seeks after God, nor does any man have any capacity to come to God. He has no interest in God. He is far more interested in what Satan can give him in this life. All men are both unwilling and unable to offer anything worthy to God that could in any sense please God or cause God to bless them. This notion that you have so much goodness in yourself that you can literally speak your desires out and God somehow jumps out of the little genie lamp and gives you everything that you desire because you're such a noble person created to be a winner and a champion is a lie right out of hell. The movement doesn't understand depravity, and that's where all understanding of the doctrines of grace have to start. The most attacked doctrine is the doctrine that says man can do nothing. Because every other religion in the world except true Christianity says man can and must do something. There are only two religions in the world: divine accomplishment and human achievement. Divine accomplishment is true biblical Christianity. Every other religion is some form of human achievement. The idea that man is dead, blind, helpless, hopeless, that he's an eternal loser is something that men don't want to acknowledge. It is, however, the most distinctively Christian doctrine, because if it is true that only the gospel is the truth, this is foundational to the gospel. It is the one area where you're going to find a truly distinctive view of man as totally depraved. It is the most contrary Christian doctrine as well, because it goes against the grain of the dominant human internal feature, and that is self-justification, self-defense, and pride. Men do not want to recognize they are bad to the bone, that they're corrupt to the bottom, that they are incurably hostile to God and good, that they are self-centered fatally, that they are self-deceived. They are superficially willing to acknowledge their sins. They are sinners in their sins. They will admit that, but they will not see themselves as sinners in their goodness, and they will not see themselves as sinners in their religion, their thoughts about God. They don't believe to be sinful, but noble. False religion then becomes the most deceiving and the most heinous of all sins. Religion doesn't cancel out the doctrine of total depravity. It proves it. Preachers like Joel Osteen and others must, I think, hate the true God. They wouldn't say that. I think they hate the true God. I think they hate the true Christ. That's why they mask the true God. That's why they hide the true Christ from the eyes of their followers, and they put in his place an idol. I can't think of anything worse. According to Scripture, the Lord does not offer sinners what already enslaves them, their own lusts and desires. The Lord offers the sinner the gospel, and with it the hope of being rescued from what enslaves them. The gospel calls the sinner to flee, deny self, run from judgment, die to all that is in the world, escape hell, and gain heaven.
So let's look at total depravity. We find that in Scripture. For all of us, Isaiah 64:6. For all of us have become like one who is unclean, and our righteous deeds are like a filthy garment, and all of us wither like a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind carry us away. Now, this was repeated by the Apostle Paul. It was quoted by the Apostle Paul when he was speaking about our condition before God. Let's go to Jeremiah 17:9. Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can know it? Okay. Now let's go to Matthew 7. Matthew 7:17 to 18. Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. You see, there's such thing as a bad tree. Okay? And the only one who can make that bad tree a good tree is God, right? There's no such thing as, well, you're a bad tree, but you can make yourself a good tree. Nope. Matthew 19:25-26. And when the disciples heard this, they were very astonished and said, then who can be saved? And looking at them, Jesus said to them, with people, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Let's see. Let's do some verse shopping here. Psalm 58:3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. The wicked are estranged from the womb. These who speak falsehood wander in error from birth. Okay? I'm not going to say anything on that. I want that to marinate in your brains, people. Okay? If we go to John chapter 1, verse 12-13, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become the children of God, even to those who believe in his name, who were not born of blood. Who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. You see? So while it says in verse 12, but as many as received him, that would be a direct contradiction to verse 13. Okay? They were not born of blood, of the will of man, of the flesh. You see, they were born of the will of God. That would contradict 12 if by that you meant that I received him by my own knowledge, acknowledgement, by my own decision, by my own will. No. He says perfectly in verse 13, not by the will of man. Okay? It's pretty clear. And the doctrine of total depravity, again, it speaks of the fact that we're all fallen in Adam, and also that we need God to resurrect us to new life. Okay? So if we go to John, hang on a second. John 3. Let's go to 3. Okay. John 3:3 and 3:19. Jesus answered, said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. So you have to be born again. And you cannot born again yourself. Okay? And John 3:19 says, and this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and men loved the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. Let's go to John. Wait a minute. What did I do there? Whoa. Something weird is happening. Something weird just happened. Huh. All right. So let's go to... I'm going to fight it right now. 1 Corinthians 1:18. For the word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. And 2:14. But a natural man does not accept the depths of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually examined. Stand by, folks. Let's do Romans 3:9-18. What then? Are we better? Not at all, for we have already charged that both Jews and Greeks are all under sin. All under sin, all under sin. What does that mean? Okay, that's the total depravity there. We're all under sin. As it is written, there is none righteous. He quotes again. He quotes the prophet. There is none righteous, not even one. There is none who understands. There is none who seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. There is none that does good. There's not even one. Their throat is an open tomb. With their tongues they keep deceiving. The poison of asp is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their paths. This is a lifestyle. And the path of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. This is what the Apostle Paul was referring to. Okay? So if we go to, wait a minute. Let's go to 14:23. 14, wait a minute. Sorry about that, folks. I am live on Podbean. You could check out replays back on the www.divinenature.net for this podcast. Romans 14:23. But he who doubts is condemned if he eats, because he is eating out of faith, and whoever is not of faith is of sin. So whoever is not from faith, whatever is not from faith is sin. Okay? Everything outside of faith is sin. Okay? That's just the way it is. And that's what we see throughout Scripture. Ephesians 2:1-5. And you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you formerly walked according to the course of this world, according to the ruler of the power of the air, the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience, among whom we also formerly conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, doing the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath. You see, we're by nature children of wrath. That's before we come to Christ, even as the rest. But God, being rich in mercy because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, we were dead, made us alive. See, he has to make us alive. Together with Christ, by grace you have been saved. How awesome. Okay? I mean, it's just the doctrine of total depravity. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who draws near to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Hebrews 11:6. Okay? So understand that, let's see here. Understand that this is the condition of the world. And the Bible also says that the world lies in the lap of the evil one. And that the God of this world has blinded the eyes of those who are not in Christ. Okay? Every day more and more. So because it is so necessary, I'm going to read Romans 1, starting at verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because of that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, both his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not glorify him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the likeness of corruptible men, and of birds and four-footed animals and crawling creatures. Therefore God gave them over in the lust of their hearts to impurity. See? This is the opposite of sanctification towards purity and of God, but a regress towards the cesspool of hell, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them over. This is judgment. When he gives them over to dishonorable passions, for their females exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural, and in the same way also the males abandoned the natural function of the female and burned in their desire toward one another, males with males committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. And just as they did not fit to acknowledge God, God gave them over to an unfit mind. You see that? An unfit mind. Are we not seeing that depravity today? A useless mind to do those things which are not proper, having been filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, and greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, violent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. See, disobedient to authority, and it starts in the home. Without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. And although they knew this is unmerciful, the young man who took Charlie Kirk's life acted in this way. And although they knew the righteous requirement of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. Okay? And yet you see those people in that church giving applause to the depravity that comes out of the mouth of a woman who cannot know the difference between good and evil. Now evil is good and good is evil in her world. The shame. Okay? That's what we have. We have depravity in high places. It's in our government. It's in our people. It's in our culture. It's in our institutions. It's taken over everywhere. Okay, sound the alarm. We need Christ. We need Christ. Okay? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And what are we going to do about it? What can we do? Where's the hope? The hope can only be found in the person of Jesus Christ. If you recognize that you've come, that we're sinners, all of us, that we're imperfect, and evil is a continuum, but so is the grace of God. That if you turn and you recognize there's elements of this in me, there's unforgivingness, there's unmercifulness, there's lack of grace in my words and my disposition, then you can recognize why Christ came. He came to die for sinners. He came to bridge us to the Father, and he satisfied the requirement of his atoning work on a cross for our redemption. We recognize this. We have to see this. We all recognize that humility is a human trait and a very valuable one. Let us humble ourselves. Even us who know Christ, let us be shining examples of that humility. Okay? No matter what, even when people strike against us and lash at the mouth, let us be graceful. Because that's what God has called us to. He's called us to grace and mercy, forgiveness and tolerance, right? Without compromising of the truth. Anyway, thanks for joining me once again in this edition of the Divine Nature Podcast. Until next time, God bless. All right, you're listening to the Divine Nature Podcast, a blog and cultural commentary ministry dedicated to declare the gospel of Jesus Christ, to reach out to those who have ears to hear by the power of the Holy Spirit. Check out divinenature.net for updates on blogs, videos, and more podcasts. And don't forget to share if you care. Until next time, God bless.